This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Stick around to the end of the video to find out more. Pixar. With Onward now officially behind us, naturally, Soul is the next big project to make its mark. And recently, we were hit with the official trailer, showcasing a whole lot more than a simple teaser can do. Now, that original teaser released a good 4 months ago now, and the response was a little conflicted, and I was a pretty big vocal part of that. Soon after its upload, I released my big response of Pixar Soul concerns me. It did pretty well, and now that this new trailer has been released, I've had all sorts of new comments popping up telling me I should give this film a bit of a break. According to the new information we've seen now, this film suddenly looks promising. So what we're going to be doing this time is breaking down this new official trailer to both see what kind of details we can pinch out of the 2-minute runtime, as well as compare it to our old criticisms to see if this film is actually the kind of quality we would expect from Pixar, or whether it's more fuel for the idea that Pixar is heading to a more downward generic kind of spiral. So as a start, away from the trailer specifics, we actually know a handful of new characters, thanks to the announcements of some casting. The first we have on our list is Joe's mother, and looking at the trailer, clearly we see her right here. Right on the line, is all this living really worth dying for? Whether that's some darker foreshadowing or just a slightly more existentially deep line, we'll come to that later on. Clearly, this mother character is important to Joe and could very well be the person on the other side of the phone when he gets the gig. It could be all the family he has nowadays, and though I can't really tell, she could be the sole visitor in the real world after Joe's accident. The clothing here on this person is clearly a bit different, but the hair color could be leading into something else. And thematically, only leans more into the theme of wanting to avoid death, since leaving a family member behind surely would be a hard decision to follow through with. Other characters we now have named are Curly and Dorothea as the members of Joe's band, Connie as the successful trombone student, and Paul, apparently slated to be Joe's neighbor nemesis. What a premise of a guy. I wonder if they'll sympathetically visit Joe in his coma for both characters to witness and learn from. Joe learning his nemesis' secret adoration for him, and 22 seeing some more positives of humanity. We also now see throughout the trailer these new 2D type characters named as Jerry, Terry, and Counselor, the denizens of the before and afterlife, and this comes quite nicely into our first old criticism from the original teaser trailer. But before we touch that, if you want to see more analyses and trailer talks from me, go ahead and subscribe. Videos like this especially reach a lot of non-subscribers, and it tells me if you're watching unsubbed, so go do it. So, the character designs. Pixar characters often look great. They have both that emotive, elastic design whilst looking incredibly different between each other. And these human characters are much the same. I love the design of Joe Gardner and everybody else. But where my problems came about were in this afterlife, or before life, or whatever, and the generic blobby design we've seen a handful of times lately. To me, it was all a little overexposed. And as another gripe, it's a movie trope now for non-white characters to always be transformed into something entirely abstract, be it frogs, pigeons, or refractive souls. But as we've seen more from this film, there looks to be a good bit more from the character design department. Sure, our protagonist is still a basic blob, but from how much footage there seems to be, it's looking like there will be a substantial amount of time spent back in the real world, deciphering the details of Joe's life. Be it reminiscing on the olden days with a new, young, flashback Joe, or just discovering how the world as a whole is in life. Either way, it exposes us to a whole lot more of that character design that we're a particular fan of, with those cartoony curves that are clearly human. And in addition to that, many of the blobs we see in the background of many of these clips aren't quite so generic as 22 is here. Sure, everyone else that is in the same position as 22 is about as basic as it gets, but I guess it kinda links to how much of a blank slate they all literally are. Every character with defined personality traits are reflected with that in their design as a blob. Grannies look like grannies, there are hairstyles and props, and though it's not the most in the world, it helps a little bit at least to fill out the screen with a bit more visual diversity in design. And of course, I couldn't possibly cover character design without talking about those 2D characters. Now this is a particularly interesting sample. Obviously 2D animation has taken quite a dive in modern days, and being able to express this in an abstract world makes for a lot more unique points for Pixar, and technically they've dabbled in it before. Still, I really like this. The designs are weird, but the concept behind it certainly shows that Soul isn't going for that generic look. Ironically enough, it seems my least two favorite designs are the two main characters, but seeing as how literally everyone else in the film has some kind of positive points to be made about them, I'd say that I'm pretty satisfied with the character designs overall. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the animation itself. Beforehand, I kinda touched on this anyway, but the background designs seemed like placeholders for the teaser, as there were practically no details in them. One was a black void with whiteness to the side, and the other was a grey void, even worse. Now we see that concept art in full 3D, and that looks kinda nice. Kinda got a Candyland look to it. But I'm a particular fan of the diversity of worlds being touched upon here. While we start off in these open fields, there's also that kind of line art ghostly town with libraries and shops for the souls to explore through. We've got a bluish void that leads into portals to the Earth world, and though the background is still just another void, the fact that there's portals in it at least makes it more interesting. Or how's about the spotlight world for witnessing someone's life story? There's a theatre for growing souls, and the piece that really fascinated me when I saw it, the black and white music dimension. Feeling like a body of water to fall through, it clearly highlights the pun of the film's concept with souls being connected through soul music, as Joe falls through several strumming strings. And changing animation style certainly gives more variety to the visuals of the film. A star all around, really. This expressionism behind the film clearly has a strong foundation to be explored and makes this new world far more investing to see expanded compared to the minimalism we saw beforehand. Furthering on that idea of musical theming, let's talk about the soundtrack itself. I didn't have any complaints with it beforehand. In fact, I praised the piano music from AJR, but more so, it spreads its wings even more now. Not only do we have that jazz band aesthetic, but once in the great before, we're given what I assume is, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, that kind of African tribal sound, perhaps leaning into the spiritual elements of the culture with the film's story, as well as connecting more to the African-American narrative being told here. Or I'm reading into it a tad too much. I don't actually know my music theory all that well. I also really like the calming track at the start of the trailer. It really has that mystical New Realm film, you know? Oh, I just love that stuff. But let's now actually dive into the meat of this film's mystery, the actual story. I previously mentioned how little I was attached to this 22 character, as they seemed annoying and unfunny from their very first joke, and I gotta say, I'm still not too convinced here yet either. We get another joke told to Joe's face, and it's slightly better, but it's still not top notch to me yet. But hey, I guess that's more of a nitpick. Let's try and stitch this film trailer together in chronological order and make some sense of it all. Be aware there's bound to be plenty of speculation in this as well. So we all know the start. Joe Gardner is a middle school band teacher by day and aspiring musician by night. One day he gets his big break, a gig with the Dorothea Williams Quartet, today at 7. Ecstatic, he calls someone important to him and then falls down a manhole into a coma. Presumably he's found quickly since he was literally on the phone to someone when it happens. Appearing in the void, Joe discovers his new body. He talks to some nearby souls to get his bearings and is taken onto the conveyor belt into the great beyond. But with his life unfulfilled and an obvious fear of death before his time is up, Joe rips out, falling down into the depths and landing into the great before, where souls exist before their birth. Joe learns of this reality and ends up in a theater. Oddly enough, older souls are watching, so perhaps this is a ritual for old and new souls to pair up to help the learning process. You learn of what it's like to live and become ready to try it yourself maybe. Regardless of how it actually works, this is where Joe meets 22 as the soul that doesn't want to live on Earth and is presumably assigned to him if this pancake shot tells us anything at all. It's his job now to overlook her for some reason and try to convince her of the great parts of life. Also, this theatre clearly displays a 7-piece logo that appears on every young soul. I don't know exactly what the 7 pieces are, but clearly they're unlockable things for each soul, and presumably different to each one. It's not exactly the 7 deadly sins, but maybe it's 7 motivations, the 7 wonders of the world, or 7 personality traits, and 22 notably has all but one filled in. She's long experienced in this before world, but refuses to move on and be born on Earth. What do you think the odds are the final piece will end up being music, the thing that resonates with 22 and convinces her to try out living? Regardless, Joe tackles the convincing task with 22. Meanwhile, she teaches him all about this abstract world. Joe reminisces on his life through a series of flashbacks to express the joys of life, whilst 22 explains what this world has instead. They try a library for new information, or perhaps as a solution to something later on, and wind up in this memory room, with 22 showing Joe how to activate it, and Joe being able to witness his life story. Seeing his time before he picked up music as a simple cleaner, inspired by TV and living a basic, non-outstanding life, and when he discovered music as a kid, from his dad teaching him piano to getting into the Half Note Club for the first time and being in awe of the band on show that night. And then finally discovering his latest memory, a new one, with him in a coma in a hospital bed. Realizing he's still alive, they try to return him. Maybe now they go to the library for answers. As they journey, we learn more of Joe, like his connection to his mother, who could very well be making a new appearance in the hospital, and presumably his neighbor nemesis at some point too. Maybe showcasing to 22 that not everyone in reality is nice, yet maybe not all that bad if they end up visiting him in his coma, changing 22's mind on humanity. Eventually, they reach a portal right into the hotel room and fall in, and really, that's all we get to know. Does that actually have repercussions, like 22 becoming a person in reality as well, or both of them inhabiting Joe's body? Is it a fake out as nothing really happens and they're still stuck in the abstract world after all? Honestly, I have no idea. But as a B-plot, our antagonist, I guess, comes from Terry, the 2D counter who notices someone is AWOL. We see them running in the great beyond towards a stairway to something. Is this the theater entrance or something else entirely? Regardless, they are likely to be on the tail of our protagonist throughout the film as well. As a final thing that does confuse me, there's a couple of shots that seem out of place. First is a shot with Joe with a young girl, who could be his daughter, though we've yet to know her role in any of this. Maybe she's grown up now and is the one on the phone instead. Maybe she's some sort of potential future Joe gets to witness in the memory room alongside the successful gig. Or maybe it's an ending spoiler of some kind. Maybe with 22 convinced into the real world, she's the one that ends up being his daughter after everything is said and done. Maybe she's a different memory entirely. Joe has a completely different beard, so maybe this is a strange past or an alternate reality. Does Joe have dead relatives he can find in this world? Actually, yes. If not this daughter character in a much more darker background plotline, it certainly looks like his father isn't around anymore, yet was his musical teacher. How would his father react to seeing him here? Is it even possible for them to reunite in this afterlife? Oh, isn't that a tearjerker scene in the making? Maybe he gets his chance to perform in this world for his father instead. Or switching over to the successful gig scenes, what is this? Is it a dream of Joe's? Is it the happy ending? Is this a challenge with both Joe and 22 controlling Joe's body in this moment? Or is this some alternate reality again? I certainly hope this isn't a spoiler from the second trailer ever, but Pixar clearly isn't afraid of showing moments from the ending scene, so I guess we'll have to see and hope that this doesn't ruin everything. Overall, this suddenly looks to be a whole lot more of an enticing movie. It's got those deeper existential themes about whether life is worth living and what is the drive that motivates people, whilst it's heaped with an imaginative world and potentially tearjerker story as well that is perfectly in line for how Pixar markets itself these days. And if there was any criticism to be felt with this storyline, I can see a whole lot of similarities with Coco, literally playing with death and the afterlife again with an underlying theme of music. This ain't no musical, but it's certainly playing close to its past. I have faith that it is its own thing, as it's more about teaching life to be lived rather than avoiding death and chasing your heroes, but even still, I can see a lot of overlap coming from Coco. But with how much I enjoyed that in the cinemas, I certainly can't say now that I'm not looking forward to Soul. The story all about a guy afraid of death and a girl afraid of life. The search for a soul amongst the soul music. A quest to return to a body in a coma, and the quest to open a soul up to a new body entirely. I gotta admit, with all things considered, although there are still minor grapes that can still be made, like the movie trait of being transformed into a character with no associated skin color can still be made, this new Soul film seems to have a whole lot more going for it than we previously thought, and I think I can now say that I am a whole lot less concerned about Pixar's Soul. And speaking of concerns, have you ever been concerned over the difficulty of creating your own website? Well, with Squarespace, you never have to worry. Squarespace offers all sorts of features to make your website creation as easy as possible. A simple feature that goes a long way is the use of video backgrounds. Obviously, I may be a bit biased when it comes to videos, but they certainly grab attention. And the ability to use videos as your background image is remarkably simple with Squarespace's interface. A whole lot easier than doing it yourself, I can certainly tell you that. And through them, you can use any video you like. It is fully customizable to you. You can just start with an easy template and customize to your heart's content. So go ahead and go to squarespace.com/DazReviews to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain upon launch. Otherwise, I guess when it comes to Soul, we'll just have to wait and see how the actual film turns out this June. Unless it gets delayed. For now, my name's been Daz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit. This is good news. I don't like being a negative Nancy all the time, so to hear that Pixar does have something good strolling in only builds up more excitement in me. I hope my relief is well placed.